At birth, there is no mask. There's only impulse, curiosity, and need. You cry when something hurts, reach when you want connection, and rest when you're tired. Nothing is filtered. Nothing is edited. You don't wonder how you look or how you sound, you simply exist. This version of you isn't confident or insecure, strong or weak. It's honest. This is the last time your identity belongs entirely to you. As a newborn, you don't separate yourself from the world. There's no me versus them. You respond without strategy. You don't hide joy and you don't suppress fear. Every emotion passes through, freely, without judgment. You're not trying to be understood. You assume you already are. This natural state isn't naive. It's pure presence, before language, before rules, before expectations. There's no awareness of identity at first, only experience. You don't think of yourself as quiet or loud, good or difficult. Those labels don't exist yet. You move through the world without self-observation. Nothing inside you is divided. This is important because it shows that fragmentation is learned, not natural. The person you become later is built on top of this original, uninterrupted self. Before anyone reacts to you, you are already enough. There's no reward for behaving a certain way and no punishment for being yourself. You haven't learned to measure love, attention, or safety yet. This matters because it means the real you was never something you had to earn. It existed first. Everything that comes later, the masks, the adjustments, the roles, are additions, not foundations. This pure self, unshaped by expectation, is fleeting. The world slowly teaches rules. What is acceptable, what is noticed, what is rewarded. First smiles, the first scoldings, they plant the seeds of adaptation. Yet, deep inside, that unfiltered you still exists, quietly waiting. It is the core beneath every mask you will one day wear, the foundation of who you truly are before the world begins to sculpt you. As we grow, the world begins teaching lessons without words. A frown can stop us from speaking. A smile can reward us for acting a certain way. We notice which behaviors gain attention, affection, or approval and which bring criticism. Slowly, we start measuring ourselves not by who we are, but by how others react. Experiences shape not just what we do, but how we understand ourselves. Friends, family, and teachers all leave impressions. Each interaction teaches rules. How loud to be, when to speak, when to stay quiet. You start anticipating reactions before they happen, adjusting behavior instinctively. Over time, you notice patterns, what makes others happy, angry, proud, or disappointed. You learn to navigate these invisible currents, and slowly, your own natural impulses are filtered through the world's expectations. Experiences don't just teach behavior, they teach value. You begin to equate approval with worth. When praised for a joke, you feel smarter. When scolded for speaking out, you feel smaller. Each lesson reinforces that being yourself is sometimes risky, while adapting is safe. These early patterns are subtle, almost invisible, but they quietly map the path toward the masks you will later wear, shaping your sense of who is allowed to exist. Over time, the lessons accumulate into instinct. You no longer consciously adjust to people, you just do it. You anticipate disapproval, soften your tone, hide your quirks. Even joy becomes measured, laughter calibrated to fit the room. Without realizing it, the pure, unfiltered self from birth is being overshadowed. Each experience builds a layer, a filter, a guideline for how to survive socially, but survival comes at the cost of full authenticity. By the end of childhood, you have learned that the world responds better to some versions of you than others. You start editing instinctively what you say, how you move, even what you dream out loud. This isn't conscious deception, it's survival. Still, beneath it all, the original self waits, quiet and unacknowledged. Growing up teaches lessons, but it also teaches hiding, setting the stage for the masks that will follow. As we move through adolescence, the lessons from childhood begin to solidify into masks. Each mask is shaped for a different audience, one for family, one for friends, one for teachers, one for strangers. These masks aren't lies, they are adaptations, carefully crafted to protect the self while navigating the world. You begin to perform without thinking, slipping into roles that keep you accepted, safe, or admired. Each mask feels natural in its own space. With friends, you might exaggerate humor or confidence. With family, you soften your opinions to avoid conflict. With strangers, you become polite and cautious. Over time, switching between these versions becomes automatic. You rarely stop to wonder which one reflects real you, because survival and connection feel more urgent than authenticity. The masks don't just hide you from others, they hide you from yourself. You start measuring your behavior by the reactions you get. Each smile, nod, or word of praise reinforces the mask you're wearing. Slowly, the original self recedes into the background, quiet and overlooked. The irony is that the masks protect you socially, but they also fragment your sense of who you truly are. Sometimes the masks clash. The version you are with friends may contradict the one you show at home. You learn to navigate these contradictions, sometimes blending traits, sometimes compartmentalizing. It becomes exhausting to maintain multiple selves. But the fear of rejection or misunderstanding keeps you performing. Each mask feels essential, yet none capture the fullness of the person you really are. Eventually, wearing masks becomes second nature. You rarely notice the effort. It feels normal to adjust, to filter, to perform. But beneath each mask, the real self watches quietly, patient and waiting. Every mask is a compromise between who you are and who the world wants you to be. The challenge is realizing that survival and acceptance shouldn't require erasing the person you were born to be. As the masks accumulate, the line between performance and reality blurs. You begin to forget which version of yourself is true, which is curated for others. Decisions feel guided by expectation rather than desire. Even your thoughts start to echo what you believe others want to hear. Slowly, the self you once knew, the one unfiltered, instinctive, and whole, begins to fade into the background, overshadowed by roles and reactions. You notice the distance in quiet moments alone in your room, during a walk, or late at night. You ask yourself questions you struggle to answer. What do I really want? Who am I beneath all this? The answers feel vague or foreign. The masks that once protected you now limit you. They keep you accepted, safe, and liked, but at the cost of the core self that once existed freely and without hesitation. As the masks dominate, a strange unease grows inside. Decisions feel heavy, even trivial ones. You notice a quiet tension in your body, a constant vigilance, as if part of you is always on guard. Moments of spontaneity feel risky. The real self isn't gone, it's compressed, hidden behind layers of performance. The cost of adaptation becomes clear, living safely outwardly, but inwardly, slowly losing the sense of who you truly are. At some point, the contrast between your masks and your inner self becomes impossible to ignore. The fake versions carry you through social life, but the real self waits quietly, sometimes surfacing in moments of solitude or intense emotion. You feel tension, guilt, or confusion. Part of you is performing, part is observing, and the gap between the two grows. The challenge becomes learning how to reconcile them. Recognizing the divide is uncomfortable. You might feel shame for hiding or frustration at the effort it takes to maintain appearances. But awareness is the first step. You begin noticing when a mask slips, when your words or actions don't match your feelings. These moments are signals, invitations to reconnect with your authentic self, even if just for a fleeting instant, reminding you that the real you still exists beneath the roles. Sometimes the fake self feels safer, easier, or more loved, while the real self feels vulnerable or exposed. This creates inner conflict. Part of you clings to masks for protection, while another part longs for freedom. The tension can be exhausting, like living into overlapping worlds. Learning to deal with it isn't about abandoning the masks entirely. It's about recognizing which are useful and which suppress the truth of who you are. An identity crisis isn't just confusion, it feels like being split in two. You may follow one path to satisfy others while longing for something entirely different. Everyday choices become draining because every option asks you to pick between your real desires and your performed self. Even your memories feel filtered, leaving you unsure which moments reflected who you truly were and which were shaped by expectation. Living behind masks clouds judgment. Returning to your real self gives clarity in choices. Decisions are guided by true desire, not approval or fear. You start recognizing what matters to you, not what others expect. This clarity reduces stress and prevents constant second-guessing, making life feel more intentional and less like a performance. When you reconnect with your real self, emotions are no longer filtered. You can feel sadness, joy, or anger fully without immediately hiding or adjusting them for others. This emotional freedom allows you to process life authentically, reducing anxiety and tension caused by constant self-monitoring. You begin to experience depth in relationships and in daily moments that masks had dulled. Being your real self attracts people who appreciate you for who you truly are, not the version you perform. Relationships become deeper and more meaningful because they are based on authenticity rather than expectation. Friendships, partnerships, and even professional bonds improve when you engage honestly, creating trust and mutual respect instead of superficial approval. Returning to your authentic self reduces internal conflict. You no longer expend energy maintaining multiple versions of yourself or worrying about being caught in a role. Life feels lighter, quieter, and more centered, even when facing challenges. The real self provides a stable foundation. Because you are no longer divided by expectation, you act in alignment with your own values and beliefs. Embracing your real self allows personal growth to be genuine rather than performant. You learn from mistakes because they reflect who you truly are, not just a mask you are wearing. Goals become meaningful, passions rekindle, and self-confidence strengthens naturally. Over time, living authentically builds resilience, wisdom, and fulfillment that no mask could ever provide.